Welcome to Crypto Church, everybody. Today we have Patty Mulcahy with us. He's filling in for Pastor Rocky once again. And he's going to be talking to us today about finances within the context of the scripture. So welcome, Patty. Thank you for joining us.
Not a problem. Good to see everybody. Welcome to Crypto Church community, and thanks for joining us again. This is a bit of a experimental social media platform, just looking to uncover the fact that the word crypto is in the Bible, is in the New Testament. It's a Greek word, and it means hidden. And so we're launching into this unfolding. We want to discover what God has hidden for us in the scriptures and in our lives and in our calling as we move forward. So one of the first things we're doing is just going through scripture by scripture. We're looking through which scriptures have this word hidden or crypto in it. And then we're also linking that through to how God then disrupts the world, disrupts our lives, pushes us out of our comfort zones, much like the crypto markets are actually pushing very established and controlled methods of finance out of their comfort zones. So today I have a finance background. I spent a number of years in finance. By God's grace, I landed myself in a stockbroking firm at the age of 19, delivering mail up and down the business district because it was quicker to send a boy to go and do that. And then within a couple of years, I'd actually landed up on the retail stockbroking desk, working with high net worth, what we call here in Australia a high net worth person or someone of significant wealth. And then I kind of transferred into the wholesale desk. Wholesale here, again, it's more about institutional investors and big kind of fund managers. So I've got a bit of experience there, and then my career kind of extended on to working for some of the larger banks and managing some pretty large sums of money until 2008, the crash happened. And I decided that it would be time to all I knew was sitting in offices and looking out of windows. And don't get me wrong, that's great for some people, but for me, I was just still very young and I wanted adventure. And now I've had a successful painting company business for the last 12, 13. We're getting on. I've been a painter for a while now. So I wanted just to use a scripture that has this word hidden. Laura, if you could bring it up for everybody, that'd be great. It's in 1 Timothy chapter 5. Let me see if I can find it myself. I should have it here. Oh, we're both typing. Let's get that up.
So I have up 1 Timothy chapter 5. What verse are we going to start?
Well, we're just going to start straight off in verse 25. I'm in the NIV, so we'll start with 24 because it looks a little bit more like those thoughts connect. The sins of some are obvious, reaching the place of judgment ahead of them. The sins of others trail behind them. In the same way, good deeds are obvious, and even those that are not obvious cannot remain hidden forever. It's a reference to good fruit. Good trees bear good fruit. Bad trees bear bad fruit. Sometimes when you walk up to a tree, like Jesus did in Mark 11, it looks like the tree is good and it's going to bear fruit, but then a good-looking tree that doesn't bear fruit is obviously a deception. So sometimes things can look good, but they don't. They're not good. In the same way, good deeds are obvious, and even those that are not obvious cannot remain hidden forever. So we're going to use that as a launching pad to talk about the fact that to talk about this concept of investment versus gambling. Now, there's a lot of people who are new to markets and to all share markets, and even I love him. My father-in-law, when I first met him, was very suspicious of me because he comes this young, brash man in a suit and all the rest. He was like, "Oh no, all stockbrokers are thieves," and I'm like, "Well, some stockbrokers are thieves. Some stockbrokers are. There's bad people everywhere, but a lot of people have a mistrust of financial markets, and they have a mistrust towards people who work in digital currencies and digital markets. things such as commodities trading, FX, foreign exchange trading, moving around of debentures and debt facilities, or then you've got kind of derivative products such as options, put and call options, etc. There's lots of derivative products that come off the actual base product, and it can get very confusing and very complex very quickly. It's a language, it's a skill set for anybody out there who's a tradesperson like myself. To learn the financial markets is a language and a trade all of its own. And even then, inside each one, foreign exchange trading is very different to stock market trading, is very different to commodities trading, futures trading, all these sorts of things. So they're all very different. They have their own products and derivative products and their own language and their own styles, their own control measures to make sure that risks are mitigated. That can be very scary if we don't know what we're talking about. It can be very upsetting, and some people might not know what it is. And straight out, a lot of people just go, "Oh no, stockbroking, that's just all gambling." But I want to talk about the difference between investment and gambling and give us a bit of an idea, because good works, even if they're hidden, do eventually come good, and they are shown to be good. And what we've seen is that free markets and the capitalism, even though capitalism is an incredibly atrocious system, it is the best one we've found so far. It has proven that, we'll talk about it, but it's proven that to be one of the better distributions of wealth across all people than other systems that we've tried in the past. So we're going to just talk about a few different things between gambling and investment. And I want to just kind of solidify for people what gambling is first before we move into investment. Gambling is almost always a short-term winner pays the loser exchange. It is a direct transfer of wealth from one person or one entity to another entity based on a short-term position, i.e., I think X person is going to shoot X goals in a game, or I think my team is going to shoot the first goal, or I'm putting something on a horse, or I'm putting something on a pony. Really dangerous starts, types of and uses of our finances. We don't want to do that. But then, if you look at the whole gambling world, there are people who approach that like they're investors. I'm not saying that it's investment, because it still falls into the short-term loser pays the winner concept. But my first business partner, he was, it was a great painter. And the Lord had me join up with him, despite the fact that he wasn't a Christian. He had a history of training and running dogs, and he would run the dogs at the dog races. He then gave that up and decided that he would go in and learn poker. Now, when I met him, he was one of the, like down here we call it the pub, or you guys might call it a bar. He was a pub poker champion for Victoria and Western Australia, which is 2 states here in Australia. He was a very good poker player, and he would often play at the casinos and do different things. And it was one of the privileges that I was very happy to kind of. I don't know if you've ever watched any of my previous videos, but I'm not I'm not too worried about just experimenting and figuring and learning things out and trying things. And so he taught me how to play the game. And all of a sudden I realized, like, even though every hand there's a gamble, if you are playing poker, for instance, over a long period of time, 3-4 hours, you sit there going, you're working the table, you're working the cards, you're working the people at the table, you're working the numbers, you're figuring people out. There's a lot of things going on beyond the momentary gamble. Now, there is a momentary gamble, of course there is, but there's so much more going on in layers. And so if these people have approached this game, and you might find that maybe you're a sports fanatic and you know everything about every player, and you know who's in and out and what the draft is, and you know who they're coming up against, and you know the stats. And that's where you go, I reckon I can put a bet on. There's levels here to the investment. There's levels, and what we're going to talk about is risk mitigation. So the amount of investment that you place mitigates the risk. Now, all of that is still considered gambling, and 100%, I would say, don't do it. Don't do it. But you can see there that when you take that method, you take that mindset, and you approach it to, and you take it to the financial markets, you can still gamble with the financial markets. You can take that mindset into the markets, and you can look at whatever exchange you want, stocks, derivatives, futures, foreign exchange, commodity trading. You can gamble. In fact, we had a really famous case here a few years ago of something called where someone did insider trading. Now, insider trading, well, that's a whole other thing to describe, but essentially, companies are working with sensitive information about their futures, their investments, what they're doing, and before they secure what they're doing, they have to finalize a large number of things. People are making takeover offers, people are calling left, right, and center to do different things, and not all that information is released to the market. There's a huge barrier between what gets released to the market and what stays inside the company. If everything got released to the market would be like this. But they can't release it to the market. So what happened here is we had a guy, he was working for our Bureau of Statistics, and he was releasing information through to a foreign exchange trader. That foreign exchange trader, then they had an agreement that they would try to get a little bit of, make a little bit of money, but the foreign exchange trader was doing his own trades on the side. And what happened? Every single time he traded off the information that he wasn't supposed to be getting from our Bureau of Statistics, that is a government agent who is breaking the like, it's beyond non-disclosure agreement. It's like criminal at the highest level. He was using sensitive information from the Bureau to give to this foreign exchange trader. And this foreign exchange trader on the side turned his wealth into millions of dollars. And when they tracked it, they said he had 21 trades all made within moments of the information coming out that maximized his position. And they said he never missed one in 21 trades in a row. Never missed one. Always made money every time. Now, the problem is, they weren't smart about it, and they got caught, and they went to jail for a long time. Now, if you were to say to me, insider trading doesn't, can we catch it? No, we can't catch all of it. But if you're dumb and you're reckless and you're greedy, all the greedy guys get caught out. All the silly guys get caught out, and anyone who's not, look, it shouldn't be done. But cheaters and cheats eventually find themselves out, and that's one of the best things about our markets. Markets are made, the way our market runs, it actually, financial markets at the moment, they by and large can work to eradicate unhealthy human behavior, such as greed. I mean, so we'll go into that. But essentially, what I want to say is that a lot of people approach the financial markets with a gambling mindset. They think they've invested enough knowledge. They think that they know what they're doing. They think they know what's happening. They're across all of it, and yet they're always after the short win. They're always after that short-term play. They're always after that. I want that. Now, look, that's exactly what traders do. But you need to understand, traders spend 10 hours a day looking at a screen doing that. They're not looking at it as a one-term thing. They have a business model that says that they have calculated losses and gains, and they have calculated that over the course of a year or 2 years, etc., as they trade, they will make that profit. It is a business model. And there's a big difference, because you can approach trading with an investor mindset instead of a gambling mindset. And even though the transactions are smaller, it's all part of a business play. And this is the same for most businesses. So we'll talk about that, right? Let's talk about what a good company does. Let's talk about what investment looks like. You probably heard of Warren Buffett. Essentially, if the fundamentals are good, let the chart tell you when the entry price it represents good value, not just the lowest price. We've got to detach our emotions and get in. If you're buying in, you want to know that you've done the research of what value is and get in. I'll take a little drink. How does that sound, Laurie? I mean, that whole concept of gambling, I mean, what's your feedback on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, the way you describe it like that, it seems like a lot of the different methods of investing are kind of like gambling. I mean, I'm seeing like even in crypto, in the cryptos too, like going long on some things and short on others, and then going for like a 25% gain in a matter of a couple hours. I mean, it's so volatile, and there's a lot of it.
Yeah.
It is like gambling, really, because there's not like fundamentals. And they don't mean much these days, right? I mean, a lot of these companies that have huge profits, they don't have the fundamentals to back them up.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's exactly right. And this is where even back when I started getting into this, and I ignored it for a long time until mates of mine really kind of just got so excited. They were like, "Hey, markets, let's chat." So, and my first questions to them were always, "What's the fundamental behind it? What is the company actually essentially behind every crypto and every story has to be good market fundamentals." And this is for me what I look at. I'm like, good market fundamentals. Essentially, I'm looking for a number. We'll go through them. We'll go through what I'm going to say is a good market fundamental because I don't want to. I'm all up for good gains. I've got some coins that have done really well, but that's because I've come at it with an investor mindset, and I have, and I've waited my time. And yeah, there've been times when it was a loss, and I'm sitting on a loss. It's like, no, that's fine. I'm happy with where I got in, and I'm happy with the story that I believe, and I'm happy with the market. I'm happy with the product. Good companies. Just same as that concept. We'll come back to the scripture. Good works, even if they're seen or not, eventually can't be hidden forever. Good companies are the same because good companies stand the test of time because they apply wisdom and ethics to their practices. One of the big things that we see, have I got notes here about that down here? So I'll tell you just a quick story. I mean, I've written this one down for you, but back in 2008 with the, what do you guys call it? I knew it was Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and the subprime mortgage. Was that what it was called? Subprime mortgage. Thank you, Bill Clinton. But what happened was essentially, because of the subprime mortgage thing, the reason that rippled around the world was because all of a sudden credit agencies such as Standard and Poor's were able to give top 500 companies and others around the world a AAA credit rating whilst they undertook a broader scope of risk. So it's extended, so people were still able to borrow at the cheapest rate because they had a AAA credit rating, even though their risk profile under an old metric said that was dangerous. And so people were borrowing money and using that money for much, much riskier things than they should have, because there was, well, for whatever point in term, whether you think it was good or bad, that's exactly what happened. But around the world, what happened here for you guys in America was the same for we all work off the same standards of risk in the free market. And so around the world, people started stretching their risk, taking on more and more risk, and being able to borrow larger amounts of money without it costing them any more, or without that money being channeled into safer and safer investments. And eventually it all fell down. What we had here in Australia was from mid 2007, one of Australia's best exports is this bank called Macquarie Bank. Now, Macquarie Bank, you might never have heard of it, but it owns things like London Sewers, and it runs airports, and it runs telecommunication companies, and it runs road systems, and owns roads all over the world. So this is what it does as a bank. It's an investment bank. It's not a retail bank. And so in mid 2005, it hit a share price high of around about 2007, of around $65. And over 2008, because of the crash, it dropped and dropped and dropped and dropped until a year and a half later, mid 2009, it went to $18, from $65 to $18. But the problem was, and I was actually working for Macquarie Bank at the time, and the problem was that none of the fundamentals of the company had changed, and they themselves had never stretched their own internal risk ratios in accordance with everybody else. They hadn't gone for the short-term gain. What they did was that as the market crashed, they sold off business units, raised capital, did a fundraising of $600 million out of Europe, and they raised over $1 billion And then they used that, and in 2009, they went and bought all the companies that were failing but had good fundamentals. Now, 7 years later, the share price is at $181 a share. Now, imagine being the guy or the fund manager who was selling at $20 a share back in 2009. It's just ridiculous. Good fundamentals prove themselves out over time. I want to just talk about a couple of things, right? So, and these are gospel things. We could talk about John Calvin, and he went to Geneva a few hundred years back. They called him in, and you can mark a turnaround in the depravity and the economic situation of that city pre and post John Calvin moving into that city and teaching them how to bring Christian ethics to their business models so that they were building businesses that would last for longer than just their generation, that they weren't building a practice just to eat the next day. And all of a sudden, you've got companies like Rolex, UBS, Credit Suisse. You've got some of the largest companies in the world, some of the best products ever made coming out of this city hundreds of years later. It's the turnaround when the gospel comes into a city or comes into our lives. All of a sudden, when the gospel comes in and starts doing work, maybe we don't need gambling so much, so we've got more money for our families. All of a sudden, we put that into a house, or we put that into a small business, and then the financial situation of my family gets better, and then my kids can go to college, and then all of a sudden, where I was in my 30s, I'm not there in my 50s because I let the gospel come into my life, and I let Jesus do a work, and all of a sudden, the things that are broken start to get healed, and I start to apply wisdom. Same thing with companies. A good company, because there are companies out there that are gambling. Oh, man, I'm probably rambling going on. The amount of times I sat in a boardroom and watched companies who wanted to list on the market, and a minimum raising at the time here in Australia was 20 million before you could get onto the Australian Stock Exchange. And they were looking for $20 million, and they would just float these company ideas. And these guys are just, all they're looking for is this launch. They just want to launch a company. But the ideas were just harebrained, just the most ridiculous concepts. And you'd sit in a boardroom and you'd sit there and you're entertaining your clients because the guy wants to present to institutional investors who have real money. And it was just like, or high net worths. And you just sit there going, oh, man, we try to filter out some of the bad guys, the really bad, but then you get some guys and you're just like, man, this guy, what is he doing? Like, everyone can see through him. And the amount of times I would put my hand up in the meeting, I was a kid, and these guys are like in their 30s and 40s. I'll put my hand up and go, yes, but how are you going to make money? And all the investors would look at me and go, well, that is the obvious question, isn't it? Like, it just didn't, people, there are gamblers out there, especially in business. So good companies, instead of gambling, they do due diligence, they do market research, they employ labor and skills in producing products, and they fill needs in the market. One thing, if you're looking at buying a stock or a share into a company, go around, if they have a retail store or something, go and have a look and see if there's anybody in the store. Is there anybody shopping? Is there anybody buying their product? Just basic market research. They might have a lot of capital to get started, but man, the amount of times I see a lot of capital come in and it's like, oh, well, we've had heaps of them here in Australia. We had some fast food chain trying to make meat pies, and I'm walking past them every day going, man, they're in trouble because no one's buying them. I wouldn't buy them. I ate one. I was like, I'm never eating that again. And if I say I'm never going to eat that again, the last thing I want to do is put my money on an exchange to invest in their company. And guess what? 4 or 5 years later, they're up for liquidation. It was one of the biggest liquidation. They had heaps of money bought in, but there was no one buying their product. Good companies do their research and they fill a hole in the market. Good companies use modern management techniques to ensure that there are efficiencies and no wastage across all of the delivery that they have. That's what a good company does. If you see a company where the management is full of wastage, they're wasting time, they're wasting resources, they're not focused, and they're not building good systems of automation, man, they are not going to last in this market. The market will get rid of you. Those kind of wasteful practices will get rid of you. You have to continually invest. You can't gamble. If you gamble, you're in and you're out. If you invest, you continually build and continually build. It's not a winner pays the loser exchange. It's completely different. Investment that good businesses, um, and look, and this is kind of why nepotism is so strong, because the father can pass to his son because the son carries the culture, ethos of the family that his business. Same with, sorry, no gender. Females do the same thing, you know. So it's but from mother to daughter, it's not about gender, but it's about nepotism. From family to family, these things pass down because they believe that they want their company to be valued. So these are things that happen for good companies that do good research and position themselves well in the market, and then we can have that same attitude to our investing. We can continually invest and invest and invest. It's very different to looking for the big spike. It's looking for the long-term return. And even if it's hidden, even if you think in the short term that kind of investment, you've put your money in and people go, oh, that doesn't look like it's paid off. If you've done your research and you know what you're doing, you can hold on and see that do well in the future. So look, there's a whole heap. I mean, I could just keep talking markets and markets and markets. But there's a big difference between a gambling mindset and an investment mindset. And even if you're a trader, a true trader is coming at the trading practice with an investment mindset, not a gambling mindset. Now, with all both investment and gambling, there is a risk to reward ratio. Of course, companies are spending money, which is to invest in a product which they believe fills a market. They thought, this pie company thought that they were filling the market, but they missed it. It was a good company. They'd set up well. They marketed well. They thought they were filling a hole in the market, but they missed it. And they missed it somewhere along the line. They missed it. There's Just because you employ all these good tactics doesn't mean the market's not going to move on you, change on you. I mean, look at Kodak. Kodak for me was a home brand photo company, and you'd go pick up a Kodak film, you'd put it in your thing. They decided not to invest in digital cameras, and where are they today? Gone, completely gone. Great. I mean, they were a global, worldwide successful company that made a poor choice about the direction of a market, and now they're gone. So this kind of stuff happens all the time. I have a lot of market information. People kind of talk to me and go, oh, why don't you trade more? Why don't you do more? I'm like, no, I'm more like a collector. I find coins that I like, and I put a little, and I buy a few, and I put them on the shelf, and I know they'll appreciate in value, but it's the long-term play. And when I really need, in 20 years' time, when I look back and go, wow, that was a lot of money to buy a Bitcoin. It cost $50,000. I mean, how many, did you even get one full Bitcoin, or did you just buy the Satoshis? It's like, yeah, maybe, let's be honest, I'm in at the Satoshi level. I'm not a rich man, but maybe those Satoshis will be, in 20 years' time. If I cast my expectations out 20 years, do I think Bitcoin is still going to be around? Yep. Do I think Ethereum is still going to be around? Yep. Cardano, any of these other coins? Yep. And that's a big difference to know about these coins that are making a difference in the world, and coins that jump up that have silly stories and silly just take your money pirate schemes. And there are just plenty of them, So watch out for, sometimes the sins of these coins are obvious. Sometimes the sins of these coins are hidden, but good investment over time will prove out for you. And so just want to give that to, love your thoughts, love to have people kind of commenting, and obviously this is very baseline, and I've talked a lot, but write some comments, write some questions, get in there. This is a channel where we talk about Jesus, we talk about the gospel. This particular broadcast is far more just about markets and good investment techniques, just a little bit of wisdom I've learned over the years from my exposure to the markets. And but I would really encourage you that if we're thinking about the best investment that you can actually make, which may be hidden to everyone else, but is absolutely true, will pay off forever, is the decision to invest your life and your will into submission and relationship with Jesus Christ. And I would encourage anyone who's listening to this for the first time to take that seriously. Do your research. Don't be a gambler and go for a quick gain, but consider investing and joining with Jesus and making him the Lord of your life for the rest of your life. It will pay off more than you've ever thought it could. And above any other riches is this one riches. Become a Christian today and give your heart and soul to Jesus and declare him to be the Lord of your life. And I would encourage you to seriously consider and investigate and research that and then make your investment. All right, Laurie, thank you for your time. Thanks, everybody. Again, make comments, like the video if you like it. And, be good to hear from some people out there.
Oh, thank you very much, Patty. That was really thought-provoking, and it's good to stop and consider where we are investing our time and our talents and our money, and for eternal purposes. And there's several. I mean, I spend a lot of time in the Psalms, and there are many Psalms that talk about, people that get rich quick and do it unethically. They do it. They might prosper for a short time, but eventually it all gets blown away, and they end up losing their soul in the process. So we don't want that to be us.
No, we don't need to be afraid of money, but we do need to know that it's not master over us. One thing is that in the scriptures it talks about that we don't have a spirit of fear, but power, love, and a sound mind. There's a difference between being afraid and faith and saying, well, I'm not afraid, so I'm going to be reckless. There's definitely, God hasn't given us a spirit of recklessness either. And just, I actually really love that worship song, Reckless Love. I love it. I'm a big fan. But when we consider investments and we consider these things, the Spirit of God can call you to do some crazy things. In fact, some friends of Rocky I met had some crazy stories about investment. Some guys back in the Sterling community. But I think that we need to be mindful that God will lead us into good investments, do our research, but let's not be gamblers. Let's not be reckless and just go, well, this is just a step of faith. Actually, no, it's not. It's just a step of being silly. And so there's a balance there. It's not a one or the other. We need to be mature about how we appropriate these things.
Yep. Thank you. And thank you, everybody. For more information, please visit rockybeach.org. And you can also, in addition to here on YouTube, you can find us on Telegram, on Facebook, on Brighteon, and you can find Pastor Rocky on Twitter at Rocky Beach. We'll see you around the same time next week. Thank you.